Tap the wooden beam in your basement right now with the handle of a screwdriver. If it sounds hollow, if it gives a little under your pressure, or if a fine dusting of wooden powder drops onto your floor, then I want you to listen to me very carefully. Beneath your feet, inside the quiet, dark spaces of your walls, thousands of tiny jaws are chewing through the frame of your home right now, 24 hours a day, without ever taking a break.
And most folks handle it the way the big pest control companies have taught them to handle it. You pick up the phone, you call a man in a white truck, and he walks around your foundation with a clipboard. He points at the mud tubes along your sill plate or the sawdust under your porch, and then he hands you a piece of paper. $1,000 for a chemical spray. Sometimes $2,500 to tent the whole house and drill holes through your concrete porch. And even after you pay that heavy bill, he tells you that you need to sign a quarterly maintenance contract for another $90 every 3 months, year after year, for as long as you live in that house. Because if you stop paying, the bugs come right back. Now, I want you to sit with this for a moment. There is a simple white mineral powder sitting on a low shelf in any hardware store or grocery store in America right now for about $6 a box. Just $6. It does not smell like a chemical plant. It does not off-gas toxic fumes into the air your children breathe. And when you mix it the right way, with 2 simple ingredients you already have sitting in your kitchen pantry, it does something no synthetic chemical spray can ever do. It does not just push the bugs away for a few weeks. It turns the very wood of your home into poison for termites and carpenter ants, while remaining completely harmless to your family and your pets. My name is Elias Yoder. I am Amish, and I farm here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. The barn sitting behind my farmhouse was raised by my great-grandfather in 1888 out of rough-sawn white oak and white pine. It has stood through 138 winters, high humidity, damp springs, and millions of subterranean termites crawling through the soil of this valley. And there is not a single structural beam in that barn that has been weakened by a termite or a carpenter ant in over a century. We have never hired an exterminator truck. We have never signed a pest control contract. Today, I am going to show you the exact 100-year-old recipe we use, why it works on a biological level, how to apply it step by step in your own home this weekend for $6, and why the pest control industry in your city would prefer you never learn that this white powder exists. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will know how to protect every wooden joist, beam, and wall in your house for less than the price of a single fast food meal. To understand why this simple recipe works, you first have to understand the 2 different enemies eating your home, because they do not attack your wood in the same way. The English builders and the exterminator trucks lump them together as wood-destroying insects, but a termite and a carpenter ant are completely different creatures, driven by 2 entirely different needs. A subterranean termite does not just nest in your wood. A termite eats your wood. Wood is made of something called cellulose, which is a tough, fibrous material that most living creatures cannot digest. But inside the gut of a termite lives a tiny microscopic organism that breaks down that tough wood fiber and turns it into sugar and energy. To a termite, the pine studs inside your living room wall are not shelter, they are dinner. They crawl up out of the damp soil beneath your foundation, build hollow shelter tubes made of mud and saliva across your concrete footings to protect their soft bodies from the dry air, and they hollow out your beams from the inside out. You can look at a floor joist that looks perfectly solid on the outside, but underneath a thin shell of paint or outer wood, it has been eaten away until it is as thin and fragile as paper. A carpenter ant is different. A carpenter ant does not eat wood at all. She cannot digest cellulose. What a carpenter ant wants is real estate. She is looking for damp, soft, or slightly decayed wood to carve out nesting galleries for her colony. She uses her strong jaw muscles like tiny chisels, biting into the grain, ripping out small shavings of wood, and kicking them out of tiny kick-out holes in your baseboards. If you have ever found a small pile of dry sawdust sitting on your basement floor, under a window frame, or near a bathroom wall that looks like soft, shredded pencil shavings, you are not looking at termites. You are looking at the excavation trash of a carpenter ant colony working inside your structure. Now here is where most homeowners make a terrible mistake that makes their pest problem 10 times worse. When you see carpenter ants marching across your kitchen counter or mud tubes on your foundation, your first reaction is to go to the hardware store, buy a red spray can of synthetic bug poison, and spray every insect you see. You think you are winning the battle because 20 ants drop dead on the floor. What you do not know is that modern chemical sprays are what entomologists call fast-acting repellents. The moment the scout ants feel that harsh chemical spray, a panic signal goes through the colony. They realize their main nest is under attack. The colony immediately performs a biological survival trick called budding. The queen splits her colony into 3 or 4 smaller satellite colonies and scatters them deeper inside your walls, behind your shower tile, under your roof subfloor, and into your attic. You sprayed 10 ants on the floor, and in response, you created 4 new carpenter ant nests inside your home that you can no longer reach. You did not kill the enemy, you forced them to retreat deeper into your frame where they can chew in peace. To stop these creatures without driving them deeper into your frame, you do not need a violent chemical spray that smells like a laboratory. You need something quiet, natural, and slow. You need a mineral that has been sitting in the earth since the beginning of time. That mineral is called borate. In plain language, it is borax and boric acid. Borate is a natural white salt dug straight out of dry lake beds in the desert. To a human being, a horse, or a dog, it has very low toxicity, about the same as common table salt. You can hold a handful of it in your bare palm without feeling any burn, smell, or discomfort. But to a termite or a carpenter ant, borate is an inescapable biological trap that attacks them from the inside out. Here is the exact chemistry of how it works. When a subterranean termite eats wood that has been treated with borate, the salt enters its stomach and completely shuts down the microscopic organisms living in its gut. Without those tiny helpers, the termite can no longer break down the wood fiber into food. It can still chew, but it cannot draw a single calorie of nourishment from the wood. It quietly starves to death on a full stomach right inside your walls. For carpenter ants, borate works through a different vulnerability. Carpenter ants are clean creatures. They spend hours every day grooming themselves and each other with their legs and mouth parts. When they walk across wood or drywall treated with borate, the fine white dust sticks to the tiny hairs on their legs. Later, when they sit in the dark gallery to clean themselves, they lick the mineral off their body. Once swallowed, the borate acts as a slow digestive poison and metabolic disruptor. Within 48 to 72 hours, the ant dies. And because borate is slow-acting, it performs the ultimate Trojan horse trick. A worker ant, or termite, does not die immediately where you sprayed it. It walks back into the central nest, carrying the borate on its body and sharing the poisoned food with the rest of the colony. The worker feeds the larvae, feeds the soldier bugs, and most importantly, feeds the queen. By the time the colony realizes something is wrong, the queen is dead, and the entire nest has collapsed from within. Here are the 2 simple recipes my family has used on this farm for generations. Recipe number 1 is our deep penetrating wood wash for termites. Take 1 gallon of clean hot water. Stir in 2 cups of plain borax powder and 2 cups of pure boric acid powder. Stir the liquid continuously until the white powder dissolves completely and the water turns crystal clear. That warm water carries the borate deep into the pores of the raw wood. soaking past the surface and locking the salt deep inside the grain forever. Recipe number 2 is our sweet bait mix for carpenter ants. Take 1 cup of warm water, half a cup of plain white granulating sugar, and 2 tablespoons of boric acid powder. Stir it until the sugar and powder melt together into a sweet syrup. The sugar draws the worker ants out of hiding, and the boric acid provides the silent poison they carry home. Now, having the right recipe in your hands is only half the battle. The second half is knowing where and how to put it so it actually reaches the enemy. If you just spray a little bit of this mixture on a random piece of wood in your basement and walk away, you are wasting your time. You have to put the medicine directly into the path where these insects travel, hide, and feed. Here is the exact step-by-step masterclass on how to treat your home this weekend. First, you need to gather 3 simple tools. A garden pump sprayer, the kind you pump up by hand, which costs about $15 at any hardware store, a cheap plastic spray bottle for small tight spots, and a handful of small cotton balls or shallow plastic bottle caps for your carpenter ant bait. Start down in your basement or crawl space, because that is where 90% of all subterranean termite infestations begin. Walk along your concrete foundation wall with a flashlight. Look closely at the sill plate, that is the long wooden beam sitting directly on top of your concrete foundation, and look at the ends of your floor joists. If you see mud tubes climbing up the concrete wall from the dirt floor, brush those mud tubes away with a stiff broom. Now, take your pump sprayer filled with warm Borate wood wash. Set the nozzle to a heavy soaking stream, not a fine mist. Spray that wooden sill plate until the wood is completely dripping wet. Spray the bottom 2 feet of every floor joist, the wooden rim joists, and every piece of structural framing near the ground. As the wood dries, it drinks that water deep into its grain. The water eventually evaporates into the air, but the white borate mineral stays locked inside the cellular structure of the wood forever. Any termite that attempts to climb up out of the soil and bite into that sill plate next week, next month, or 5 years from now will take 1 bite of that borate-soaked wood and die. For carpenter ants hiding inside your finished walls, you use a slightly different tactic. Find the baseboard in the room where you have seen ants marching. Look for tiny kick-out holes or small gaps where the wall meets the floor. Take your spray bottle filled with the sweet sugar and boric acid syrup you mixed earlier. Soak a few small cotton balls in the sweet liquid and place them inside tiny plastic bottle caps directly along the baseboards, behind your refrigerator, under your kitchen sink, and near your bathroom plumbing pipes. The scout ants will discover this sweet trail within a few hours. You will see them cluster around the cotton ball, drinking the liquid. Resist the urge to squash them. Let them drink peacefully. Every single ant that drinks from that sweet cotton ball is carrying a dose of liquid borate back into the dark cavity of your wall to feed the queen. Within 3 to 4 days, the line of ants will slow down to a trickle, and by the end of the week, the entire gallery will be completely silent. Now, I want to address the question that is probably sitting in your mind right now. If a $6 mixture of plain borax, boric acid, water, and sugar can permanently protect a home's structural beams from termites and wipe out an entire nest of carpenter ants in 3 days, why hasn't your local exterminator ever recommended it to you? Why hasn't the pest control company that drives down your street every week put this recipe on their website or sold it in a simple bottle? The answer is not complex. It comes down to basic business arithmetic. Think about how a commercial pest control company makes its money. A company that drives a fleet of shiny white trucks, pays for radio commercials, buys internet ads, and employs 10 full-time technicians cannot survive on a one-time $6 sale. If an exterminator comes to your house, sprays your floor joists with a deep, penetrating borate solution that locks into the wood grain permanently and kills the subterranean termites at the source, he has solved your problem for the next 20 years. You shake his hand, pay him for an hour of labor, and you never call him again. His truck never pulls back into your driveway. That is a wonderful outcome for you as a homeowner, but it is a terrible business model for a commercial pest control enterprise. What the industry discovered decades ago is that there is far more long-term profit in selling you a recurring subscription model. They want to sign you up for a quarterly spray contract, $60, $80, or $90 every 3 months, year after year, for as long as you own your home. To make that subscription model work, they often rely on synthetic chemical sprays that degrade quickly in the environment. These synthetic neurotoxins break down after 60 to 90 days. The moment the chemical barrier wears off, the scout ants and termites crawl right back up from the soil or out of the surrounding woods. Your phone rings, the exterminator comes back out, sprays another perimeter barrier, leaves a small receipt on your door, and collects another $90. Multiply that $90 visit by 4 times a year, across tens of thousands of suburban homes in every county in America, and you are looking at a multi-billion-dollar industry that depends entirely on your pests coming back on a regular schedule. Borate does not wear off because it is a raw earth mineral, not a synthetic chemical compound. Unlike artificial sprays that evaporate or break down when exposed to oxygen, a borate salt crystal sitting inside a dry wooden joist stays in that wood frame indefinitely. As long as the wood remains dry and protected from heavy rain, that $6 treatment you apply this afternoon will still be sitting inside that timber, killing wood-boring insects 20 years from now. There is simply no recurring profit in a solution that never expires. Now, before you go out to your shed or head down to the store to get your supplies, let me give you a few plain, honest safety rules and prevention steps. Because even the best recipe in the world needs to be used with care and common sense, and I want your home to be completely safe for your family while you protect it. First, let us talk about handling borax and boric acid. While these natural earth minerals have very low toxicity for humans and larger animals, they are still concentrated mineral salts. When you are measuring out the dry powders and stirring them into hot water, wear a pair of simple rubber work gloves and avoid breathing in the dry dust. If you spill the liquid mix on your skin, simply wash it off with plain warm water and soap. When you place your sweet Carpenter ant bait caps around the house, place them out of reach of curiosity. Put them tucked safely behind your heavy appliances, high up on basement ledger boards, inside closed wall voids, or under the kitchen sink cabinet where small children and household pets cannot lick or play with them. Boric acid is a mild salt, but it is not meant to be eaten by dogs, cats, or young children. Treated with basic respect, kept in its proper place, it is one of the safest and cleanest pest management options available on Earth. The second part of long-term protection is source reduction. You can treat every wooden beam in your basement with borate, but if you leave the doors wide open for moisture, you are making your job 10 times harder than it needs to be. Termites and carpenter ants do not enter a home by pure chance. They are drawn toward wet, soft, decaying wood like iron to a magnet. Take a walk around the outside perimeter of your house tomorrow morning. Look for 3 specific things. First, check your firewood pile. If you have stacks of firewood leaning directly against your wooden porch, your siding, or your home's foundation wall, move those logs at least 20 feet away from the house and elevate them off the bare ground on concrete blocks. A damp firewood pile leaning against a house is nothing more than a welcome mat for termites. Second, check your soil contact. No wooden siding, deck post, or door frame should touch the bare dirt of your yard. Maintain at least 6 inches of clear concrete foundation between the soil line and your wood. Third, clean out your gutters. Clogged gutters overflow, pooling water directly against your roof eaves and foundation, creating the soft, rotted wood that carpenter ants crave. Fix the leaks, keep the wood dry, soak the frames with borate, and your home will stay solid for 100 years. When you step back and look at the whole picture, the choice sitting before you this weekend is very simple. You can continue doing what the commercial pest control industry has trained modern homeowners to do for 50 years. You can hand over hundreds of hard-earned dollars every single season to a company that sprays temporary chemicals around your foundation, keeping your house dependent on a contract that never ends. Or you can take $6, walk down to the low shelf of your local store, pick up a box of plain borate minerals, and handle the problem yourself at the source, just as self-reliant families have done in this valley for over a century. This knowledge was never lost because it stopped working. It was simply set aside because there is no corporate profit in a $6 solution that lasts 20 years. But the raw minerals are still sitting on the shelf today, waiting for anyone who is willing to roll up their sleeves and use them. So here is what I want you to do this weekend. Take a flashlight and walk down into your basement or crawl space. Inspect your sill plates, check the joists near your plumbing, and look along your foundation walls. If you see signs of wood-boring insects, mix a batch of warm borate wash, pump up a sprayer, and soak those beams until they drink their fill. Put out your sweet bait caps where the scout ants travel, and let the slow earth mineral do the quiet work it was born to do. Tell me in the comments below where you are watching from today, how old your house is, and what kind of insect situation you are dealing with in your walls right now. I read through every single one of these messages, and hearing how these time-tested methods work on your own places is the main reason I record these videos for you. Until next time, keep your wood dry, keep your foundation clear, stay watchful, and remember that the people who built this country with their hands knew things that we are only just starting